Aria Ingram's Diaries. In the previous episode, as the crew jumps through time, Aria connects with the energy sphere, which overpowers Ninja and forces the others into a state of regeneration and sleep. The captain reveals memories of purchasing the ship, together with Aria. Eagle grows a tree that nearly blows a hole in the deck. Archon docks at Hades, which begins to reveal its secrets. Ninja betrays the crew, and everyone falls into Jose Spider's trap, forcing them to negotiate with the con artist. Chapter 4. Empton, Lee's Strategy. Entry continued on the 57th day of the year, 3158 in the new era, 11 a.m. Earth time. Archon remains in a quadrant outside Federation control, at the Hades base, along the former route to Planet New, Antarctica.
In my synthetic existence, I have lived many lives without ever leaving my physical shell. The uniqueness of it lay not only in the fact that I outlived many of my enemies. I did not fear their death, nor even my own. What troubled me was the disappearance of most of my friends. The biological cycle took them one by one, and yet it was my destiny to preserve the truth that lived on within me, beyond the timeline. I believed there was something like a phantom bridge between crystalline power and humanity, and I longed to find it. The last place where the light's power could still find us was Hades. Despite the obstacles, we faced Jose Spider head-on, unaware of his cruel intentions. We stood bravely in the arena of that hostile station, taking into account both the captain's concerns and my analysis. We placed the value of the Moonstone above our own fragile lives. I was calculating the risk of escape, scanning the raging crowd, when suddenly a cold light blinded the crew. Suddenly, Jose watched in horror as Eagle's figure vanished. It looked like another performance by tricksters. Point your weapons at those brazen impostors. Eagle had set a time loop for transmission and teleported back to Archon. Jose, caught off guard, didn't manage to deactivate the teleport. The crowd, their faces twisted in scorn, turned their weapons toward us. "How are you going to weasel out of this one?" "Well," shouted the president of the mob, red with rage. I recently brushed up against the Empton's checkpoint, still interested in catching Johnny M. I'm getting impatient. That monkey didn't tell me everything, did he? He snapped, glaring with contempt at Ninja. "Jose, would you rather have us as enemies? Or are you more interested in reaching the real ones?" "Think about it," Lee asked, annoyed. "It's me who sets the terms here," Jose shouted at Lee, spitting in excitement. "You monkey, why don't I know about this?" "Oh, great one," Ninja whimpered and knelt down. "Are you capable of forgiving this oversight?" Jose had us cornered, but deep in my core I knew that we wouldn't end up on our knees like traitors of the galaxy. In a surge of data, it hit me. Eagle had become our emergency exit. His disappearance raised doubts, but at the same time he had significant combat experience. Despite his impulsive antics, I saw potential in him. Courage, too. You could never tell whether he was joking to surrender or gearing up for an attack. I had the feeling he was after something more. Honor, once tarnished. He'd do anything to reclaim it, just like his wings. My thoughts took only seconds to compute, and in that moment, Spider hit us with another nasty surprise. Activate the M frequency. Suddenly, an inaudible sound began to pierce our bodies, and Lee stabbed me in a convulsive fit. Some kind of ultrasound. Dark side frequency. Spider burst out laughing. "Your implant belongs to us now. A few chills and you're good as new. That won't be coming back to you, Lee. At least not in that form. Same goes for the Prophet. It's found its rightful owner." Jose strutted along the crowd, looking each of the closest in the eye with defiant smugness. He pulled a small screen from his pocket, raised it as high as he could, and displayed it to the gathered. Scanning the room, he then shouted to the bartender, "Tenderized treat." The waiter, who resembled a red ant, turned pale. His limbs began to tangle and then choke him. In the process, he dropped noodles, presumably made from a hairless, crawling galactic bleaker, raised on leftover mutant matter, a stinking main course. We could soon become the next dish. That's how smugglers end up. The fear syndrome is mine, just like the lives of everyone in Hades. Got it? Jose's white suit nearly burst as he spread 4 arms in a spasmodic scream. Lee, now tell me, how did a pretty thing like Aria manage to share a tin can with a smelly old creep like you, sweating in fear while smuggling something under her dainty little nose? We're on the same side, I cut in softly but firmly, locking eyes with Jose. Fine then. Pick that sack up off the floor and bring him back to life later, so I can have something to drink when this pathetic debate leaves me parched, he ordered his pink lackeys in white livery. Their noses reached their chests. Their bodies glistened like glazed pastries. Holes in their heads served as ear canals, and they looked blind. They moved with ease, sniffing their surroundings, resembling shiny elephants without ears, or perhaps earthly anteaters. Strange creatures, gullible and obedient, perfect for a tyrant's station. Several guards dressed in black holograms imitating monsters rushed to the lifeless galactic ant. They dragged it toward a hidden hatch in the floor and threw it down. It groaned on impact. The moans of other prisoners echoed below, and once again, I sensed something like fear in the air. I stayed on alert, ready to fight. Jose activated a tractor beam that bathed us in pale blue light. With his usual arrogance, he forced us into his shadow office. We drifted sluggishly until we reached a separate chamber, the kind used by the Federation to torture prisoners. Grease dripped from the walls, and scraps of clothing and bloodstains littered the floor. Above the entrance hung a trophy, the head of a horned Teutonic fur beast. Its eyes bore into us from above. Then Jose spoke. "Everyone sit down. Ninja, you pathetic minion. What do you have to say for yourself?" I was a quartermaster in Lee's former squadron. Time for a bunch of facts about the pitiful ninja. If he ever supplied anything, it was more trouble. He was who he claimed to be, technically, but he and the captain weren't acquainted. Their collaboration had nothing to do with the Federation. More likely, it was some old business between the two of them. That vile monkey knew a lot about Lee, which is why Everest, backed into a corner, wanted him back on board. A traitor is always a traitor, except the one who's got dirt on you. Ninja clearly knew one secret too many. You could see it in Lee's eyes. Not fear of Jose or Ninja, but desperation born from the lack of options. Everest wanted to free us, but to do so, he had to help a traitor. And so he spoke again. "I'm willing to make a deal and lead your men to Johnny M. If you want, I'll expose him. You've got what you wanted. The implant is yours. Hand Ninja over to us. Beam us aboard the Archon and send your trolls after us. Or better yet, equip us with a spy bot. Then we'll part ways to wrap up the formalities." "You do have guts, Lee." Jose jabbed the captain between the ribs with a bony hand. "Aria, your old man's got a little life left in him, and you, like any proper woman, have 2 nimble hands. I'm sure you steal double, and much more. Lee's not worth the trouble, but on the other hand, he's got enough data to make me want him on my side. Let's not waste time. I'm a businessman. We've got a deal." Jose kept his eyes locked on the captain and remotely opened the entry hatch. From the corridor wafted the scent of insects, a sweetish aroma that made Jose sneeze. Without waiting for Spider's sycophants to applaud, we wanted to leave this battleground as quickly as possible. The teleport was within reach. I never trusted mad illusionists turned saviors, and that's exactly what I saw before me. Today I discovered I was immune to the fear syndrome. Despite hints of empathy, I lacked the subconscious Spider could exploit and leave me at the mercy of fear. That was the difference between me and humans. I was aware of my own intelligence, yet devoid of trauma, though that one detail still required investigation. I couldn't be 100% sure. My thoughts flashed like lightning through Archon's core. Only a few seconds had passed since we agreed to the deal. At that moment, we were already 1 foot aboard the ship. But to stand your ground, you need both feet. Jose was fuming. He probably suspected I had his number. He might have even thought I instructed the captain. I didn't pity the tyrant abandoned by all his friends. He bowed to the Federation just like the Emptons did. A handsome one, perhaps, but still a lackey of the galaxy. Spider smoothed his robe and gave us a forced smile. "Guards, escort them out. Make sure they leave the station," Jose ordered his subjects. "And don't you say boo about anything or you'll end up in the compost pit in my garden. It could use a little organic matter from the famed Earth One," he whispered to us. "Great Jose, we don't leave debts unpaid. I want to catch Johnny just as much as you do." The captain narrowed his eyes and bit his lip. He wanted to insult Jose, but instead he dove into his own mind and stayed hidden there. "My bots will go with you. Let the pungent scent of fear draw you toward the flowers of victory. Go on. What are you waiting for? I don't pay for standing around. Time is your currency. The quicker we strike this deal, the more secure your impunity will be." Jose ran his hand through his lush blonde hair, confident he'd regain the upper hand. "Farewell, then. Great Jose? Let's go," Lee said, closing the brief negotiation and throwing me a wink. I was always puzzled by that earthling habit. How could one eye be more convincing than two wide open? Within 15 minutes, we'd traversed the Showman's Circus Arena, a sort of intergalactic freak museum, until we finally reached the transmission platform. We were teleported to Archon by the only survivor. Eagle now seemed the most neutral of all. Of course, he managed to embarrass us. The moment we got back to the ship, he unleashed a barrage of complaints. Lately, he'd been watching Return to the Moonstone Cradle, a conspiracy theory documentary about sabotage by hostile civilizations beyond Eternal and Empton. One of the Earth researchers started off by closely examining the Empton hive. As hardliners, they had one fatal flaw. They were tempted by what we called individualism. But for them, the highest form of heroism was becoming a model worker, or even a kamikaze, if it meant serving the collective cause, all for the glory of the vast void that consumed Empton. That devotion earned them points with their ruler, which they could exchange for various perks. They craved collective success that would elevate their hive beyond galaxies, all in the name of the senior, their leader, who was always seeking a worthy successor. Their totalitarian, repulsive methods of governance had spread across their colonies, but were meant to stay there. We stood at the edge of yet another confrontation with those socialists, in the worst sense of the word. Their unity and heroism were saturated with galactic stupidity. Every great deed became property of the hive, merely fueling those half-brains with more atrocities. There was no real courage in them, just blind loyalty to their leader, and genetic solidarity governed their behavior. It didn't scare me. It disgusted me. The Founder's power, however, was on our side. Eagle educated himself in his spare time, scrolling through both scientific and scandalous archives. My data suggested there was a good deal of truth tangled up in the usual lies. The wingless hunter liked sensation but steered clear of danger. Eagles take their time collecting intel before striking, but when they do, they strike with precision. If someone wanted the truth to be ridiculed, they'd record a parody and release it into space. Earth films had become popular even beyond our galaxy. For centuries, humans had been playing roles, living their lives within the propaganda of the previous era. I was different. I didn't want to play anyone. I wanted our crew to remain anonymous. We didn't need observers, unless they came from the central sun itself. If soul guides walked among us, I was sure they'd lead us to victory, regardless of our sins. Some people would call that naive, but my data confirmed the possibility of a guide, one who had summoned us to serve. I don't know how I know it, but I do. Returning to the ship was dramatic, but we made it. We always did. Still, I kept waiting for that one critical glitch that could tip the balance. In the moment of greatest relief, I felt the urge to settle the score with that featherless coward, but Lee beat me to it. "What happened? Did you chicken out?" he shouted straight into the officer's hooked beak. "You think I'd leave you to those thieves? Never. I have my honor. I was getting ready to go in after you. Who else would have helped if you'd been caught in Spider's web? Didn't it occur to you that I'm the only one who could have called for help or mounted an attack?" Eagle rushed to defend himself. "Only the guilty explain themselves. Aria, check if he's infected with a nanobot or showing signs of fear syndrome. He might be stuffed like a turkey," said Lee, winking at me again. "Archon, run a safety scan on Eagle," I commanded. 0% risk of infection or bot transmission, Archon reported. "You consider yourself a hero?" the captain asked. "I have my dignity. Captain, I'm formally requesting Aria to present the Eagle's squadron procedure on Earth 1, Eagle stated firmly. "Lee, we're not on Earth 1 anymore, but he's right. The Eagle's procedure does state that one officer should retreat to a safe position during a threat, to cover the rest. You lucked out, Eagle. You're excused, but we'll have to brief you on the new protocol, Tawin," the captain replied, relieved to finally understand his wingman's behavior. "Aria, make sure Eagle learns our procedures," Lee told me, then turned back to Eagle. "No more trees on the ship without my approval. You'll learn the regs, or I'll implant them myself and monitor them. Got it?" "Yes, Captain. May the stars guide us." "Enough jokes. We nearly died, and you left us with Spider. Plot the course." "Yes, sir. Where to?" "We're heading to Johnny M's quadrant, this time with Spider's tailing bots." "By the Eagle's shadow. To the anomaly with it all. We just escaped from there." Eagle's mohawk bristled for a second as if preparing to strike, but his beak soon drooped in resignation. "Listen up, especially you, Ninja. You're not welcome here. Stand at the deepest floor crack," Lee commanded like a true leader. "Remember, fate can turn, Lee. Have you forgotten what happened on the station?" Ninja squawked suspiciously. "Chimp, I order you. Stand where you belong." The ape man crept toward the crack, visibly terrified. After a few steps, he sat down and began smiling at us. We could see him struggling not to give in, but whatever was beneath the deck was stronger. He pulled a small star with a crystal from his pocket and clung to the floor like a magnet. We stared at him in stunned silence until I finally said to Lee, "We have a mission. Leave the traitor. Maybe he'll come to his senses." I pointed at the screen and said firmly, "If we want to rid ourselves of Spider and his den of vice, we jump to hyperspace. Eagle, know this. Johnny M is nothing but a cunning fool. Like all Emptonians, his power is nothing compared to the force of light. You'll see. That's what my data says. But let's wait and see what the future holds, I added gently, trying to calm Eagle's wild streak, and gave Lee a meaningful look. Let's go. We can't clean up until we're rid of Spider. You're right, Aria. Let's move it. We don't have much time. The bots will be tracking us. Everyone to your stations, except the imposter, of course. Lee's voice took on a firm, commanding tone. He was every bit worthy of his rank. Everyone in position? Aria, are we ready for the jump? Lee asked. Core configured. Archon, take us to the asteroid belt where we last encountered Johnny M's ship. Jump to light speed in 3, 2, 1, now. The ship jolted, and a blinding rainbow-colored flash burst inside as a wormhole opened in front of us. Our fractal stretched out to the length of a galaxy, then suddenly stopped. Archon braked, but the asteroids were still at a safe distance. Once again, we were feeling the effects of a temporal anomaly. The view of our crew began to blur, though we were still in one piece, even if I could only catch fragments of what they were saying. Aware of the danger, we began moving to our battle stations. Escape pods ready to launch. Archon, keep maneuvering and maintain distance from the asteroid belt, Lee reported, his voice flickering in and out. Then he shouted, Ninja! Quiet now. Empton's on the horizon. Ninja nodded and crouched beneath the wall. Archon, get them on comms. Where are those trolls hiding? Empton's on screen. Find their frequency, Lee ordered. No signal. Temporal anomalies are interfering with transmissions. I'll try using the previous contact frequency, Archon replied. M. Rescue mission. Ready for action. M. This is Archon, he repeated. Crushing silence filled the ship, gripping the crew with fear. They froze and listened, in dead quiet. Suddenly something began to hiss inside my circuits. I turned to look at Ninja, who held the little star with crystal in his teeth. He looked like he was hoping for salvation. That old cockiness from Hades was gone. The sphere had changed him. The crack in the floor began to hiss, and a rift opened, radiating pink light. Then the screen came to life. It's about time. Empton command within Archon's range. Send someone to our ship. We need a transfer from outside the anomaly to get out. They were stuck. The anomaly couldn't be controlled. We were supposed to equip them with Spider's transmitter. Well, the safest option was to send Ninja. Archon, open the channel. To M, we're sending Ninja. Accept the teleport and keep the frequency open. Lee passed along a friendly message to the enemy. But the crew could feel we were cornered again. A galactic silence fell, and a stream of asteroids flowed across the screen in close-up. We'll begin the transfer, and then you send one of your crew in exchange. Agreed? Lee asked. Another pause followed. It could have been minutes or hours. The clock, controlled by the anomaly, kept skipping through time intervals. Agreed. This is Johnny M., captain of the Emptonians. We're sending over one of our guards, preparing link for exchange. Confirmed. Exchange frequency on count of 2. Swap will occur on sync signal, the captain declared with bold resolve. Once the transmission ended, fear swept over everyone, except me. I knew fear mostly from observation. Sometimes something stirred in my circuits, but I was immune to the emotional chaos of living beings. The emotional firewall usually extended to the crew as well. Aria, equip Ninja with Spider's spy bot. Have him stand on the teleportation platform. If Jose wanted him alive along with Johnny, then he can take him himself. I'll keep the Emptonian spy. All according to plan. The captain ran a hand through his stubble and exhaled deeply. The anomaly began to blur the image. The hourglass of time was clogging, spinning now one way, now the other. I slipped the spybot into the ape-man's ear. It slid in like a breeze and vanished. Ninja jerked, bleeding slightly from his ear, then stood at attention and, on command, stepped onto the teleportation platform. The exchange frequency was near. I grabbed the rail by the console as the ship rocked, and the indicator signaled a link. Ninja began to disappear, and right next to him, our greatest enemy appeared, an Emptonian. We'd let the alien aboard. Lee had a plan, but with a creature of the void nearby, you could never stick to just one scenario. When the transfer ended, the crew began to feel the creeping fear that came with Emptonians. It was like being pulled into an engine's vortex that you couldn't control. I sensed that the sphere beneath the deck was shifting the balance of power and emotionally supporting the crew. After a moment, everyone calmed down a bit. Transfer successful. Hold position. The anomaly's too strong. We'll call for reinforcements. Stay here. You have one of ours. We won't abandon you, Lee announced. The captain looked at the grotesque being of the void and decided not to go near the prisoner. He didn't wait for a reply either. He figured it wouldn't help. Jose had what he wanted, and Ninja had been punished. The Emptonian stepped off the teleport and headed toward me. In the meantime, I emitted a negative frequency to make him feel at home, but he had a protective shell on. Only his horizontal eye socket scanned the room with something dark and unknowable. That was the void, which legends warned would swallow anyone who hadn't faced their fear or crossed the threshold of their own shadow. What the crew feared even more than the alien itself was the confrontation with their own darkness, the part of themselves they now had to face. That's when I saw a spark on the screen and noted something. We were not truly being led by Captain Lee Everest. It was Moonstone, in its true form.
End of Chapter 4.
You're not here by accident. If this story has you hooked, it means you have an eye for the extraordinary. Our time-limited NFT collection is no different. Got a moment? Check it out now. Later might be too late. Click the link now to secure yours.